Hi class, today we're going to cover chapter 6, section 5, which is rhombi and squares. Our objectives today are to recognize and apply the properties of rhombi and squares, determine whether quadrilaterals are rectangles, rhombi, or squares. So let's go ahead and just start in with some definitions here. A rhombus is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. That means all the sides are going to be equal to each other. And since a rhombus is a parallelogram, then a rhombus also has the following properties. So these are just our parallelogram properties. Opposite sides are congruent and parallel, and we have already got our congruent marks in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in some arrows to represent our parallel sides. Opposite angles are congruent. So these are just some of our parallelogram properties. Congruent, and so the ones that are directly across from each other. Consecutive angles are supplementary. Remember that consecutive angles are the ones that are right next to each other. So for this one, I would say like angle F plus angle G equals 180. Angle G plus angle H equals 180. Angle H plus angle J equals 180. And then angle J plus angle F equals 180. All right, and then last is our diagonals bisect each other. Remember, bisect cuts it in half, and so I'm going to have to draw in some diagonals there. And those bisect each other, so that means these two are going to be congruent, and these two are going to be congruent. So rhombus has same properties as parallelogram, except for all 4 sides are congruent. In addition, the diagonals not only bisect each other, but they are also perpendicular. And that means that they create 4 right angles in our centers. And so perpendicular. AC is perpendicular to BD. All right. Also, in a rhombus, the diagonals, each diagonal bisects the opposite angle. So here, then we have some congruent markings. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. We also have over here these angles bisected. And I'm going to, actually those should be marked with 1 because that we know that angle R is congruent to angle P. So then if it bisects, we know that those are also going to be congruent. Okay, then we have some congruent angles over here. 5 is congruent to angle 6. And then our last ones, if 7 and 8 are congruent. All right, so let's put this into use. Given quadrilateral A, B, C, and D is a rhombus, find the following. If the measure of angle BCD, so BCD, this angle here, is 64, find BAC. So we're trying to find this angle right here. Well, let's take some information we know. We know that angle C and angle A are congruent because they're opposite angles, and that diagonal AC bisects those angles, so that cuts them in half. So then I can say that angle BAC is going to be equal to 32 degrees. So just so you know, this whole thing was 64. And so therefore half of it is just the 32. All right, let's do B. If AB is 2x plus 3, so 2x plus 3, and BC is x plus 7, find CD. Well, in a rhombus, all the sides are congruent. So let's go ahead and find x by setting those 2 sides equal to each other. Minus my x, minus my 3, and we're going to get x equals 4. Well, like we said, the sides are congruent, so I can say AB is congruent to CD. And so AC was 2x plus 3. Oh, congruent. I'm just going to change that to an equal sign now. And then I'm going to plug in for x, 4. So if I do my math, we find that CD equals 11. All right, to the back side of our notes, let's talk about a square. A square is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides, so also similar to the rhombus. And the other thing is that it has 4 right angles. So we've learned about parallelograms, and then a rhombus is a type of parallelogram that has 4 congruent sides, and then a square is a type of parallelogram with 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. All right, so let's go ahead and fill in some information here. These are all going to be parallelograms, and we've also talked about our parallelogram that's a rectangle. So a rectangle has 4 right angles. And we talked about at the beginning of our lesson that congruent sides, we have our rhombus. And then the one that has congruent sides and right angles is our special square. So right angles and congruent sides is a square, which fits rhombus and rectangle. All right, so looking here at number 2, the diagonals of a rhombus WXYZ intersect at V. Use the given information to find each measure or value. Well, if measure of angle WZX, so that's going to be this one here, is 39.5, find the measure of ZYX. So that's this entire thing here. All right, so let's think back about parallelograms, because a rhombus is a special type of parallelogram, and we know that consecutive angles, which is those two, equal 180, and we know that in a rhombus, the angle is bisected, so this is 39.5. So if we take our 180 and minus 39.5 and minus 39.5, we are going to get 101 degrees. And that's going to be the measure of our angle ZYX. All right, I want you guys to try B out for yourself for tomorrow. Deals with some sides and some sides. Yep, we're dealing with some sides. All right, number 3 deals with a square. So fill in the information you know and then go ahead and finish the rest of this one also for tomorrow. All right, guys, we'll see you then.